Hello all. Welcome you all for the session on vendor invoice management. Uh, like to introduce myself, so Kumar, and having for around 10 years working as a VIM consultant for different companies, and like I have been providing trainings from the last 4 years to the corporate trainers, industries, user trainings, and all. So basically, I have worked upon multiple VIM projects across global, working on like implementation, support, rollout, upgrade, and these sort of projects I have been worked upon. So today we are going to start with the demo session for the vendor invoice management and try to learn what are we going to basically cover in these sessions like for the vendor invoice management. So basically, before jumping onto the topic, the agenda, and all, I would like you to introduce yourself just in a line, like what is your trade, like what field are you coming from, and like what is your perspective for joining this training session, like what exactly you are expecting as the outcome of these sessions. So yeah, can we start with someone, if anyone wants to go first, and they can unmute themselves and speak. Anyone can go first, not a problem.
I'm Balaji, currently working with uh, Wipro Technologies as a FICO consultant, and I want to learn VIM to get a better opportunity in this, so that it will add to my current knowledge and get more and more opportunities. That is my purpose of joining this. um,
Okay, yeah, thank you. Anyone wants to go next? Yeah.
Hi Kumar, I am Krishna.
Hi, Krishna.
Hello.
Yep,
Yeah, good
you
morning
are all.
everyone. Yeah, I am the PICO consultant in Tata Technologies. I have totally 4 years experience. And now our project is the VIM related invoice
Mm-hmm.
path through VIM. So I need from VIM related session is important to me.
Okay, yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Currently, I am facing issues. Some scenarios is not identifying in the VIM.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In the current project, they given as a 42 test cases need to test that, but few of the withholding tax related, I find out and executed them based on that. But the rest of that, I am unable to not find out that. I have doubts about that. The what are the scenarios need to identify in the uh, what are the document.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
Now I am facing the issue. This season it would be better for that if you find out when the next find out for the scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you.
Uh, would you like someone to go next? Gautam, Pankaja, any one of you? Okay. So, yeah, I think then we can start. No, you are not.
Kumar,
Yeah.
hello. Kumar, I have
Yes.
a small
Yes.
doubt.
Yeah.
This is a recordable video while you are explaining the basic demo, those things, na?
Hmm. Yes. The recording is in progress.
Okay. After completing that, can you share the recording
Yeah. Yeah. Subbu will
for
be
reference
doing it.
purpose? It will be better.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I think you are not audible. Um, that's fine. Let's start. Okay. So basically, first to go through the agenda, what basically we are going to cover as part of these training sessions. So as you can see on my screen, so these are basically the agenda for the training. So we are going to cover the overview process, basically what is VIM and all. We will try to understand in depth what is vendor invoice management, why it is being widely used, and what are the different components and things we need to learn about the VIM, and like what a real VIM consultant is doing in day-to-day life when working on a VIM projects. Then we have some mandatory configurations. So these are basically all the configurations which are there in the agenda, if you see. So these are the basically what we are going to cover. So I am not going to be explicitly stick to only the agenda, because it's not like very you can say hard coded. Yeah. So we will be basically covering end to end for the VIM process. What is the end to end standard VIM process? What are the different configurations basically we do for a VIM system as a VIM consultant, and how it works basically in an implementation project. Okay, so basically the agenda of this training session is to get you the knowledge on how implementation project for VIM works. Okay, and what are the different roles, responsibilities that a VIM consultant has to take care in in any of the projects. So for that, we will be seeing some scenarios, case studies, and all. Based on that, we will be doing the configurations in the system and see how the system works. Okay, so this is basically what we are going to learn in these training sessions for VIM. So I will just quickly start with the introduction, okay, of VIM. Okay, so if you see on my screen, we have the just let me get a pen here. Oh, yeah. So this is vendor invoice management. So we are all here to learn about the vendor invoice management. In short, it is called as VIM. So at all the places you will be hearing VIM. So VIM stands for vendor invoice management. The next thing which you see on the slide, the second line is for SAP solutions by OpenText. So basically, what does this mean? Vendor invoice management is a tool which was created or which was developed for processing of the vendor invoices. Okay, basically, so the functionality of VIM is to process the vendor invoices and post the invoice into the SAP system. The reason why it's called for SAP solutions by OpenText is basically this product has been developed to work along with SAP. So it's an add-on to the SAP. When I say add-on, that means that you do not have to navigate through other third-party tools or any other platforms to have VIM implemented. It's implemented on the same system, the SAP system, where you all have all the configurations for other modules as well, like SAP FICO and all, MMSD. So all the configurations for this we do on the SAP itself. Similarly, VIM is an add-on which needs to be installed on top of the SAP only. So SAP is the platform where we will be doing the configurations, testings, and all sort of stuff will be done on the SAP itself. The second line, by OpenText. So this is a product which is owned by OpenText. This is not a SAP product. This is a product of OpenText. But since this only supports, so you cannot have a VIM standalone system. You cannot just run VIM without having the SAP configurations for other modules like FICO and So if so, suppose you want to process an invoice, then you definitely need a purchase order. You need a GL account to which the amount should be booked. You need the cost center, profit center, and all. So these are some configurations which comes from the FI side. Also like company code, the vendor number. So here various other modules are integrated with VIM, right? So like for vendors, you will be having a vendor master team. For company code creation, you will be having FI or R2R person doing that. You will have some consultants who will be working on the creation of the purchase orders, goods receipts, and all. So basically, in short, it is a product which works with all other SAP modules for processing and posting of the vendor invoices. Now, when I talk about like why we have Vim inside the SAP, so basically it uses the configurations done by the other modules, and it leverages those configuration to process and post the invoice. Now, the when we talk about the integration part with the other SAP modules, you do not need to worry about the integration of Vim with other SAP modules, how it will be integrated, how it we need to have it done, right? So we will also see how basically a Vim system is installed. We'll talk about it in short, but just to let you know, it's just like any other software which just needs to be installed on top of the SAP. Once you have the Vim system installed, you are good to go. You can configure the Vim as per the requirement and you can use it. You do not need to worry about the integration with FI, other SAP modules and all. Okay, automatically integrated in the backend, and you just have to worry about the Vim configurations and scenarios, right? As a Vim consultant. So this is the flexibility Vim provides. There are many other tools in the market which can be used to process the vendor invoices. Like you have, if I talk about an example, we have Evalua portal. Okay, so Evalua portal is something where invoices can be created and posted, but it is not integrated with SAP. You cannot have SAP data on the Evalua, like the vendor number, the purchase order, and all. So you will have to build an interface and all. But with Vim, this is not the case. You do not need to have any integration interface, such kind of thing. It's just an add-on which will be installed on top of SAP. And similarly, how you access the screens in SAP for other modules, like if I say Miro FB60, similarly you will be using the transaction codes to access the Vim system. Okay, now let's start with the what is Vim. Okay, so Vim is vendor invoice management for SAP solutions by OpenText. It is a tool, it is an automated tool which optimizes and automates the processing of incoming SAP documents. So by SAP documents, we mean here the vendor invoices. So whatever invoices are being sent by the vendor, it can be sent through various channels. So Vim provides the flexibility to accommodate those invoices via various channels. So basically, we process the incoming documents and post it into the SAP itself. Okay, so this is basically the functionality of Vim. Now, why Vim is being considered as like one of the I can tell you that Vim is one of the best tool which is being currently used in the market to process the vendor invoices. The reason is the automation and the flexibility it provides out of the box. You do not have to customize this product a lot in order to accommodate the business scenarios for any of the clients. So that is why there is a boom in the industry for VIM. Okay, you will see how flexibility it provides, how we can configure different validation checks and all, and why VIM is basically being very in demand in the industry currently. Okay, now this second point is about, it is originally designed to help companies replace error prone, time consuming and manual invoice processing. Okay, so basically this product helps companies to post the invoices error free, like there should be no issues in the amount, posting of the amount should be posted to the correct account, the all the details on the invoice should be correct, and these sort of things is covered by the VIM product. The next point is the basic SAP invoice management concepts are independent of the SAP technology, meaning they work the same for both SAP ERP and SAP S4HANA's deployments. From the perspective of VIM consultants, we do not need to worry whether we are working with the SAP ECC system or the SAP S4HANA system. The process, the configuration, the screens, everything will be same for both the ERPs. Either it's an ECC system or it's an S4HANA system. The concept of VIM is going to be the same for both the systems. It's just the versions of VIM that will vary, which needs to be installed on the system. So there are some particular versions which needs to be installed only on the ECC system, and there are some which needs to be worked upon only on the S4HANA system. Now you might be knowing as a SAP consultant that ECC is being decommissioned by any time very soon. Okay, so uh, projects and clients are migrating from ECC to S4HANA. So S4HANA is the new system where basically people are using VIM. So in this training sessions as well, we will focus on the S4HANA system. Indeed, there is no difference between ECC and S4HANA, but the, there are some capabilities which S4HANA provides out of the box, which can be leveraged by VIM. Like now in S4HANA, we have some tables, special tables called as AC Doka, which have the journal entries and all. So VIM also leverages those tables. So whenever you post the invoices to VIM, the entries are getting automatically generated in these tables. Whatever table you call it, BKPF, BSEC, BSIK, and all tables which are there to store the data, the VIM leverages those tables only to post the invoice. So once the invoice is posted, you will have an entry generated in those tables. So we will see all these things, but yeah, on high level, just to tell you, this is the process. Okay. Now the last point, the SAP invoice management application is an add-on. So we already covered this. It's act as an add-on. By add-on here, I mean that it's just a software which needs to be installed. I will be telling you the installation steps and all, but the installation part is basically covered by a separate team, the infrastructure team, or you call it the basis team. So the basis team will be installing the product on the SAP to get it started. Also here one point is that this product can be bought either from the OpenText directly, who is the sole owner of this product, or you can also buy it from SAP Marketplace. So with this only you can see the difference, like how in depth this is integrated, that you can even buy this product from SAP itself. SAP Marketplace, where we have the products which you can buy. So this is the reason why OpenText is being used widely for the SAP solutions, where you need to process and post the vendor invoices. Okay. Now coming to the next one. Oh, what happened? Yeah. So this is the typical business flow. Here we will be understanding basically what happens is in a day-to-day life for posting invoices in any other solution like a non-automated solution. So basically this is the picture which you see on the screen depicts the typical AP business flow. So by AP is nothing but the accounts payable. So you might be knowing that accounts payable is like a sub module in the SAP side where we take care of the accounting part. Okay. So in accounts payable, what happens basically in accounts payable section, we process and post the invoices. Okay. So we have AP and AR. So AP accounts payable is basically for the vendors. For vendor related information and postings, we go it via word called as accounts payable. And we have also accounts receivable, which is basically for the customer invoices. So that is not provided out of the box for the VIM. So VIM only supports accounts payable invoices. Whatever process you have in accounts payable, that VIM has in its product. Okay. So if you see on the screen the typical AP business flow, where we have different sections which are taking care of different roles and responsibilities. So the process here basically starts with the creation of the invoices, right? The vendor will be the one who will be creating the invoices. Now, once they have the invoice created, they needs to get the payment. So what do? They create the invoice and they send it to the company, the particular company from which they want to receive the payment. Now they will have a dedicated email address, or they can send it through a fax, or they can use the EDI channel, which is the electronic channel, right? So they can use any of the channels to send the invoices to the company. And once the vendor sends the invoices, it is received in the mail room, right? Now, once in the mail, the person sitting in the mail room receives the notification that the invoice is received. It can be days. Like suppose the person sitting in the mail room forgets to check one of the vendor invoices. Now, in that case, what will happen? The processing and posting of the invoice will be delayed, which will result into delay in the payment for the vendor. And there might be some implications like they will have to pay some penalty because they are doing late payment and all. So this is one of the case in a non-automated solution what you can see. Now once the invoice is received, so the person sitting in the mailroom will have to identify like for which vendor the invoice has been received, for which company this invoice needs to be processed, like for which company code this invoice belongs to, and all sort of the details. Based on those details, the person sitting in the mailroom will distribute the invoice to the appropriate role or person. As an example, suppose we have some invoices coming from vendor in India and some invoices coming from vendor in US. Now this needs to be segregated. A person sitting in India might not be able to process the invoice of US due to his knowledge or any sort of lack of information. Like they might not be knowing the tax codes what are being used in US, or what is the VAT rate and all. So this will be a problem. So the person sitting in the mailroom will segregate the invoice. They will send the invoice for India to people who are responsible for India. They will send the invoice to people sitting in US who are responsible to process the invoices for US. So this is the task here. Now, once it is received, they will segregate and send it to the accounting department, where the invoice will be checked. Multiple checks will be done on the invoice. And since this is a non-automated solution, they will have to do it manually. All the checks will be done, performed manually, and based on the outcome of the checks, either they will park the invoice because it is lacking some data, or if they want, they can also reject the invoice back to the vendor to ask for some more details. So they will have to communicate to the vendor on the email to ask for some details, right? Then once the accounting document is good with the data, they will send it for coder. Coder is you can imagine it as a role who will providing the cost object details. So what is cost objects? Cost objects are basically like the GL account, cost center, profit center, to which the amount needs to be booked. So that person will do the coding, provide the details and all, and then it will go to approvers to approve the invoice, right? So and once it is approved, the invoice will be posted and released for payment. But one thing here is to note is like, see, the communication which is happening between different roles in the AP business flow, it can be either through mail communication, or they can call, or they can fax, anything. Now, when this communication is being happened, the invoice will be copied several times, right? The same invoice which was sent by the vendor to the mail room, from the mail room, it was segregated to different companies, company codes. Now, here itself, a copy will be created of the invoice, right? Now, if any action is required, the same copy needs to be sent to the vendor. Also, the same invoice needs to be sent to the coder approver for checking their details. Now, at that particular moment, there are chances that a fraud can happen. The invoice might get lost, the real invoice. If there are any changes on the invoice, the same invoice, the users might get confused, like what is the real invoice, which invoice needs to be processed. So there is a lot of challenges here, right? Also, like manually, they will have to go and check each data, like each data is matching with the invoice. Whatever invoice has been received, the data is being matched with the invoice. So this is going to be a very, very hectic task for a person or any of the roles in the AP business flow, right? So basically, these are the challenges we see here in the non-automated invoice solution, which we already discussed. Like there is a large amount of manual activity, as we saw. Like it is a very hectic process to get the approvals, to validate each of the data, right? So suppose there is one industry. Let me take an example of my past experience. So I was working with a client whose per day invoices incoming was 25,000. So they were receiving around 25,000 invoices per day to be processed. Now just imagine, if we are receiving 25,000 invoices per day, how hectic is going to be to follow this non-automated process. So the workload, the workforce here will be very high. We will require many people who will be handling those invoices, doing the checks and everything, the coding and approving. Now, in this non-automated process, there are chances that many things can be missed due to hurry. Or if the invoice is not posted by today, what will happen? You will have to pay the penalty. So there are many challenges here. Also, like VIM is something which is being used only by the medium to large scale companies. It is not a product meant for small companies. It's for medium to large companies, right? Since this product is also expensive, not every company can afford it. So Basically, this product is generally used by the medium to large scale companies. Now, when I talk about the challenges here, so there can be other challenges like duplicate payments can happen. So, suppose the vendor sends the invoice twice, the same invoice the vendor has sent twice. Now, it might be confusing when you are receiving like 1,000 invoices also. Suppose only 500 invoices also per day you are receiving, and you are spending like around 15 to 20 minutes per invoice, then it's going to be a huge time. Now, in that case, what can happen? The invoice which was sent in the morning and the invoice which was sent in the evening might be the same. Then it, for a human, it is difficult to remember the first invoice which you received and the last 500 invoice which you have received is same or not. So there are chances that it can be missed and a duplicate payment can happen. The same invoice can be paid twice. Then also we have unpredictable variation in workload. So there can be companies whose work is more in from the month of January to June, and they do not have any work in June to December. So the flow of invoices is less for this period. Now, in that case, you will have to hire more people for January to June and less people for June to December. So, this is not a good approach, right? This should not happen. The workload distribution should be equal and it should not affect us, the employees. So, this is also one of the cause why a non-automated invoice solution is being not preferred. Then from audit and compliance concerns are also there, that the same invoice can be copied and the data can be altered to do any frauds. And like you are not saving the invoice anywhere, it's on the email, right? So several copies of invoices must be created when it is being passed from one role to the other. Then also there is low visibility of volume data, like what is the data and all. Then cycle time to process the invoice is very lengthy. Also, a highly skilled workforce is required to process these invoices. Since this is non-automated, the data can be missed. The the person who is processing the invoice must be aware of the data which needs to be put on the invoice and all. So it will require a high skilled force to perform these tasks, right? Now, when we talk about now let's talk about the invoice process with Vim, how Vim came into the picture to solve these problems. Now, when we talk about Vim, it is an automated solution. Most of the things which are done in Vim is automated with the help of configurations. So the requirement to touch any invoice is very less. So what will happen? Vendor will send the invoice in and it will get posted into Vim. No manual intervention will be required for such type of invoices. So this is one of the benefits of the vendor invoice management, and which is the goal for any of the clients. Okay. Subbu, can you please go on mute? There's noise. Yeah, let me mute. Okay. Now let's talk the process in Vim. What happens in Vim actually? So on the screen, if you see here we have the suppliers. Now the supplier is the key role here who will be sending the invoices or from where the invoices will be received. So they can send the invoices in any of the formats. The first flexibility with Vim is that they can either use XML to send the invoice, they can send the invoice in PDF, they can send it via iDoc if there is an interface, or they can send it through Ariba network as well. So SAP Ariba network is also one of the channels from which the invoice can be received. So basically at the first we see that the in vendors has the flexibility to send the invoice in any of the formats or the channels. Now, once the invoice is received into the system, it will be archived. What does this archiving means? Archiving means the invoice will be saved into the SAP system, so that the same invoice will be referred at each and every step which you see here. There will be no copy of invoices which will be created. The only invoice which was sent by the vendor, the original invoice, will be referred at each step, which was not the case in non-automated solution, right? Because there you will have to download and send the invoice as an attachment, and that can be altered at any particular step. So this is not going to be the case here. The original invoice will be saved and that will be referred while the processing and posting. So here, for the first part, it is the ingestion, where you can receive the invoices via electronic, via scanning, and then it will go for archiving. So here we will be doing the some set of configurations, which will, by creating the channels, we will be creating the channels through which the invoice can be received. How vendors can utilize those channels to send the invoices, we will see it in the ingestion part. Now next comes is the invoice recognition part. So what is invoice recognition? So basically, from the invoice image, the data will be captured automatically to be processed into the VIM system. So you do not need to sit and enter the data manually. Each and every field you do not need to enter the data manually in the VIM system. That will be captured from the invoice image. For that, we have another product which is called as OCR, which is optical character recognition. Okay, we will be talking about this as well. See, this is something which is you are not going to find in any of the trainings. People usually don't provide information on OCR. The reason is it's a separate tool from VIM. It's not VIM. It's a separate tool which has been made for VIM to capture the data from the invoice image. Basically, this OCR tool uses the mechanism of artificial intelligence and machine learning to capture the data. So in these sessions, I will be also covering the configuration part, which is done for the IES. Sorry, not to confuse, let's go with the word OCR for now, for the OCR setup. Okay, later on we will deep dive into this, what is OCR and all. But yeah, for now you can imagine it as a tool which is used to capture the data. So once the data is captured, it will be populated into the VIM system that needs to be processed. So next comes the invoice verification step, where the system will verify the invoice, validate the invoice with all the validations which you have configured. So here we have the flexibility to tell the system what all data needs to be checked. So once you do the configuration, the person, the processing the invoice, does not need to go and check each and every invoice and validate for data always. It will be done automatically. And based on the issues, like whatever issues it has, the invoice at the invoice verification step, the system will trigger the workflows. Okay, it will trigger the workflow to that particular role who is responsible to take action. As an example, suppose there is a issue with the tax code in the invoice. Now a normal invoice processor might not be aware of what is the correct tax code that is being used. So for that validation, we can configure a tax export as the role. So whenever this exception, the related to tax, is triggered, the invoice will be automatically routed to the tax expert. So these type of enhancements, or you can say customizing, we can do in the VIM, which will take care of the automation. And how it is done? It is done via workflows. Okay, so it uses the concept of workflows to trigger it. So in this case, no one needs to send an email or call someone to get the clarifications done and all. It will be done all inside the SAP VIM itself. and each and every step log will be captured. What is happening with the invoice, what are the different comments you want to provide, and all. So that will be also helpful in the audit while you are going for an audit perspective, right? Then once the verification is done, then we have the exception handling. So as I told, like if there is any issue with the invoice, it will be routed to the particular role who will be taking care of that exception, and whatever you can call it as error handling, we can say whatever errors are there, that will be fixed. So once that is fixed, the invoice will automatically then go for approval based on uh, several key indicators, like it can be amount, it can be cost objects and all. So we will see all those details, but once the invoice is approved, it will be released for payment in the SAP site. So this is basically the process which happens with the product VIM when you are receiving any of the vendor invoices. Okay, so here with this, we try to achieve the automation, and the target is to have as much as automatic posting you can have. Okay, now for each and every step, we will be looking into the system, how the configuration needs to be done, what are the different nodes or different points where we need to do the configurations. Okay, along with that, we will be also seeing how you can leverage the standard guides which has been provided by OpenText to do these configurations. Okay, so just remember, the VIM guides are the Bible for a VIM consultant. You have any problem, you can turn the pages of the VIM guides and look into the guides to get the appropriate information. So here we will be also seeing how we can navigate through the guides, what are the different guides, and I will be also providing you with the materials like the different guides which we have, then the bad jobs and many things are there. So we will be discussing it going forward later. It's going to be around like 24 to 30 hours of training will be required for this. And if you see, we have this PPT created for different purposes. Like this covers almost all the points which a VIM consultant should be aware of. So we have a case study as well, where we will be learning how a case study, based on the case study, how we need to take actions on the VIM configurations. Okay. So now I would like to stop here, and please ask if you have any questions related to VIM or the training, anything you want to clarify. We are good here. You can ask. Any questions in your mind you have related to this VIM trainings? You want to understand any process or whatever we discussed about VIM? If there are any queries in your mind, you can ask me now. No questions?
For HANA and ECC will be having only difference, sir, or what? What is the difference, sir?
So, Venu, right? So,
Yeah, yes.
ECC and S4 HANA are the products of SAP. Like, are you an SAP consultant?
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Okay. So, you might be knowing that ECC and S4 HANA are two different landscapes, right? So,
Yes.
ECC is basically utilizing the um, database. It does not has its own database. S4 HANA, where it has an own database, and the speed, uh, and the infrastructure is much more better than ECC, and ECC is also going to be decommissioned soon, right? So for
Yes, yes.
from Vim perspective, it does not matter whether we are having a ECC system or a S4 HANA system. It's the same for us. For other consultants of SAP like FI and all, it does matter. Like there can be several changes in the tables and all, but yeah, it's the same thing. Even for ECC and S4 HANA, you as a FI or CO consultant, you do the almost the same configurations in both the systems. It's just about the database, the system, like it's an upgraded one S4 HANA, where you have different features like Fury and all. So that is the only difference. Otherwise, it's almost the same. The configuration, the settings, the screens, everything is going to be the same. Either it's an S4 HANA or ECC.
Okay. So
Yeah.
how long
But
it will take to complete, sir? Like a 2 months or 3 months, the
so
course once
around
started?
we will be covering, like it will take 25 to 30 hours of training.
1 hour. Okay. So how could the practice session, sir?
So the about these details, now you will have to check with Subbu, like
No,
how.
you'll be giving us a practice homework once
Yeah,
yeah, in that way I was asking.
yeah. So whatever
Share.
configurations which will we be doing in these sessions, you can practice on that same configurations, and if you are facing any issues, we can discuss this in the next sessions. So that is flexible. We will have to talk and take a call on that how we want to uh, move ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, if not any questions, then we can wrap this session. Thank you all for joining this session on VIM, the demo session. If you are interested, please check with Subbu on the further details. Okay, so yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.